This is the Truth Network. Welcome to Truth Talk Live.
All right, let's talk.
The truth is, I can't hide it, I can't hold it no more.
A daily program powered by the Truth Network,
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak
Your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
It's back to school time today on Truth Talk Live, and you know, you got to be careful out there. If you've seen some school buses, right there, the kids are out there, so be careful. But we want to talk today about who came into your life, right, that opened your heart, maybe your mind, but I think heart has got a big part of it. Who opened your heart to the joy or the love of learning, right? So I have a story. You're probably not surprised. That when I was a little kid, man, I did horrible, especially when I was a very small kid. When I got in the fourth grade, my fourth grade teacher told my mom, like, you know, Robbie's not going to make, I think we're going to have to put him in a special school. You really ought to consider, you know, that he just doesn't have the, whatever it takes to really learn. And so I think that, you know, you may consider do that. My mom became obviously furious and certainly told that teacher a lot. But nonetheless, you know, I had that sense from her that I just didn't have it, you know, and she had me believe in it. And so fifth grade, I really struggled. By the sixth grade, the first time, oh, man, I had a math teacher that poured it on me. It was quite obvious she did not have a lot of faith in Robby Dillmore. And so I struggled, and I struggled, and I struggled, and I ended up with an F in that class. And my parents said, you know, I guess we're going to have to hold him back. Maybe my mom actually considered doing whatever. But praise God, he was looking out for me. There was a teacher in the sixth grade the second time that, like, man, Robby, you are brilliant. I mean, I remember him saying, you surprised me. Everybody told me you were struggling, but you don't you've got this, and look at how you did that. And he just encouraged me, and he showed me grace. I was his favorite, you know, rather than his you know, whatever. And he showed me how to love, like, man, go study. Robby, you love that stuff. Why don't you go study that rather than work on this? And he showed me how to touch my heart with what I was learning. In other words, as I began to love what I learned, then all of a sudden I learned so much better. And as that joy came in, the joy of the Lord's your strength, right? And interestingly, after the sixth grade, the second time, I got straight A's for the rest of my school days, even into college, that I loved, and I still do. Like, I get up every morning and I read the Bible and I learn. But, you know, I remember that math teacher in the sixth grade like it was yesterday. He made all the difference in the world because of what? He just simply encouraged me, just had confidence. And so I bet you got a story. I'm thinking something happened like that in your life where you realized, man, this can really be fun. Or maybe it was a project you got involved in. And all of a sudden you thought, wow, oh, if I do something I really am interested in, look what happens. Well, the number to call in, and we need your calls, is 866-348-7884. The number to call in and share again, 866-348-7884. Who lit that spark in your heart? You know, because it's one thing to learn with your mind, but when your heart is pushing you towards it, you know, even this morning for me, you know, as I was studying Esther, actually chapter 6, you know, all of a sudden it said, and that night, and it's fascinating, it just didn't say on, you know, during that night, it said on that night, and that was a sort of an extra little that. And as I began to research that and study that, it was obvious to me that, interestingly, that night correlated to the night of Passover, and it correlated to the night that Sarah was freed after her plagues that she poured out on. In other words, that night is everything to do with Holy Week. And interestingly, you know, what happened to the book of Esther happened there. And why did all that? Because I love to learn about stuff like that. And so I you know, my morning time of learning is just all so precious to me. Why? Because sometime when I was back in school, you know, somebody instilled in me that, you know, Robby does love to dig into these things, and he does have some ability to learn and all that stuff. And so, we're looking for those teachers out there maybe today that you've had a chance to see the light come on in a child, or maybe you had this situation yourself. 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. So I do have my trusty producer, Nick, with me. And so, Nick, you struggled a bit, right, from the bullies in your school.
Sure did. School was a little hard for me because instead of me being just focusing on my studies, I was focused on defending myself against the bullies. And that's kind of one of the reasons on why I repeated the 4th grade. But,
yeah, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. I made it through. I made it through. 4th grade was the only grade that I had to repeat, but it helped.
But what and again, I shouldn't fail to not say this, that Stu has always called us the land of misfit toys. And so, we fit right in, right? That's how that goes.
Yeah.
But you got a story. Come on, we need your help. 866-348-7884. Again, we're going back to school, and part of going back to school is learning, right? Is loving to learn and the joy of learning and those kind of things. And where you found your heart, right? Really, and where you found joy in learning was in band, right?
Yeah. In middle school and high school, the only thing I was ever excited about in school was band, because just music and just getting to play an instrument, it just made the day better. It made me excited to go to school, because there's some people where they don't have any excitement to go to school. They don't have any
passion.
Exactly, any passion. But but my band teachers, they helped me find that passion. And music is scientifically proven that music helps with grades. It's scientifically proven that if you're in a music type of curriculum or school, you have higher average grades than people who are not in music.
Right, because music touches your heart.
Absolutely.
And your heart, interestingly, you think it's in your head, but if you look at the word heart and you look at the word study and learning and all those things in Hebrew, they start with a lamed, because it's from your heart, right, that expresses those things. But I would love to hear your testimony, your story, things people can relate to. Students would find a better time this year as they find teachers that are going after their heart. We'll be right back. A lot more Truth Talk Live.
Truth Talk Live.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back, Truth Talk Live. Today we're back to school. We love it, but be careful out there, those big yellow buses. Like, I was on my way to the studio, Nick, and oh man, all this one that's just flipped on its yellow lights, and 2 seconds later it had red lights, and I just about had to slam on the brakes to stop right there. 2 cars behind that school bus was a police car.
Yeah, they're definitely out there. I've seen some videos of cops. They're just waiting to pull someone over if they go right past the stop. Right,
good. Right, and he would have had the Christian car guy right there on Huff and whatever. But unfortunately, I was paying attention, and we got her done. So look around; they're out there. But we're going back to school, and the question today is: who opened your heart? Who opened your mind to the joy of learning? Right? Like, I would imagine for you, as you heard Nick's story, my story. You found something that you loved, and the next thing you know, you became a learner, right? Fascinating stuff. So, I'm actually shocked that no one has called yet.
Right.
It's really unusual. But just to break the ice, I think we should say, who was the first teacher in the Bible? Like, this is a question. And we got prizes, don't we, Nick?
Yeah,
we always have the Kingdom Pursues prize vault. I have the keys to that thing, and I have some amazing T-shirts. I've got books. I've got all sorts of stuff. I think I still have one gospel back scratcher. It's got the little beads on it, yellow and all that, so that you can back scratch and share the gospel all at the same time. However that looks. We got all kind of bracelets. All you got to do is tell me, who was the first teacher in the Bible. In other words, a person that said they were going to teach someone. And I'm going to tell you that it's pretty early in the Bible. In fact, in Exodus, you will find it that there was a teacher. And who was that? 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884. If you don't have a story of, feel free. If you just got a story on who opened your heart to learning or who showed you like the ropes, who gave you the confidence, who was your Barnabas, right? Because again, the word learn in Hebrew is the letter lamed. I mean, the word lamed and the letter lamed is the word to learn. And the letter lamed is the first letter in the word heart. And it is also obviously very connected to love. And it's also very connected to music. And so fascinating is if you love something, like you go out on that first date and believe me, and you're very attracted to that person, whatever, you want to know more about them. You want to know the things they like, the things they do. You become a learner, like we become a learner of the word because it is Jesus. And it's our opportunity to learn. And it's so connected to our heart. So if you get a kid to begin to work on the things that they love, right, then, oh my goodness, you'd be amazed at how much they study. And once they learn how to learn, the joy of learning gets in there, and all of a sudden the other stuff, it comes right on in there. So I got my good friend Orlando, who is calling in to answer, who was the first teacher in the Bible, Orlando?
Well, I believe it was Moses, but he also could have been Aaron because he was the one he was appointed to eventually teach the law, but I think it's Moses.
That is a fantastic answer. Of course, you were going to win. But interestingly...
Oh, I don't...
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. And here's the deal. So, you remember what Moses said when God told him you're going to have to go... you remember that picture?
Get somebody else.
Right. Why? Because, I got no ability to talk, right?
Yeah, it's like me. I can't speak.
That's what I tried to tell God when he asked me to get on the radio. It didn't work too either. But if you look at Exodus 4:12, great question, great answer. It says, and this is God talking to Moses. And so God... Now, no doubt Moses taught, oh my goodness, did Moses teach. He wrote the entire, right, Pentateuch. So, but
Torah.
Right. But in Exodus 4:12, we have, now therefore, this is God speaking to Moses, now go therefore, and I will be with thy mouth and teach you what you shall say. Isn't that cool? The first teacher in the Bible actually was God. And when you think about it, for all of us, if it weren't for the Holy Spirit, we'd be out there. What we do?
I'll tell you something.
What?
I'll tell you something. I never quit learning. The moment I quit learning something from the Bible, I can't function. I have to be wide open, my mind, to learn every single day when I read the Bible.
You do, or you're going to become hangry. Because if you're going to get hungry, and then you're going to be angry, you're going to be hangry. So, it's like those Snickers commercials, man. If you don't get in your word every day, you start to turn into, the Incredible Hulk or whatever. But no, I'm with you. I'm with you, Orlando. So, how about, where did you go to school, Orlando?
Oh, I graduated Woodrow Wilson High School in Washington, D.C. That was my high school.
Did you? There's a lot of famous people that went to that high school.
No, not me.
Yes, Orlando, you're famous. Did you start a music group back in the 70s? Knock 3 times on the ceiling? Wasn't that you? No, you're.
If I'm going to boast on somebody, it has to be the Lord Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one I can boast on.
But yes. I know I've heard that of Woodrow Wilson High School in Washington, D.C. It seems like there are some famous people that came from there. And so, man, how big was your graduating class? That had to be a huge school.
It was like, I will say about 550 students. It was back in the 70s. See, I'm old. I'm just like the devil. I'm old.
You're not, I resemble that remark because I graduated in 73. So, anyway, Orlando.
I graduated 79.
See, you're not old. You're a young whippersnapper. Anyway, when you were in school, did you have a teacher that they like you struggled in that subject until you got them as a teacher?
Miss Spencer.
Yeah. What did she do different?
She took her time.
Patience.
Yeah, she took her time because it was chemistry, and since I didn't speak that much English, she took her time and taught me.
And so, did she speak Spanish?
No.
So she just took her time, and chemistry is a hard subject, man.
I know it.
I know. And so how beautiful it was that she took her time because she cared.
Yeah.
Right? And that caring came from her heart, right? It all kind of comes together. And that, that's, I think, one of the gigantic, interestingly, my daughter is a third grade teacher. And, I see what she pours in. I really hope, right, and pray that God gives her those gifts to be that kind of teacher that really cares about the kids, that really wants to flip that switch on, right, to where they'd be able to learn and love and all those things that we have learned to do so well, my friend.
Yes, sir. I started with an F and ended up with an A.
Really? In chemistry?
Yes, sir.
See? A rock star. I knew there was a famous person who went to Woodrow Wilson High School. All right. You call us. We got more. 866-348-7884. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
It's back to school time today on Truth Talk Live. As we've talked about all hour, be aware of those yellow buses and the kids coming out and the lights flashing, and it's a different thing. And we're grateful for the way God's provided for schooling, and what an opportunity. As we go into this, right, it's a political season, all sorts of things we could be praying about. But man, the next generation is coming. And if they will develop that level of learning, if those teachers will take the patience like Orlando talked about, I'm excited to hear about Nick. I know he had a band teacher that flipped the switch for him. We're going to hear from that in a minute. And we need to hear from you. Who was it that opened your heart to this idea? 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. We want to hear from you. And so I got another question since Orlando answered that one. We got prizes to give away from the Kingdom Pursuits Truck Prize Vault, tons of them. And so you just tell Nick what you want. We will get it out to you if you can tell me. All right. And there's a famous prayer that's on if you go to a Jewish house, they're going to have something called a mezuzah on every door. And on that mezuzah is a passage actually from Deuteronomy, and it's called the Shema. It's a prayer, and it talks about teaching children. And the question I have for you for, again, a prize, we'd love for you to call at 866-348-7884, is how often, according to that prayer in Deuteronomy 6, how often, or at what times should we be teaching our children? Yeah, well, it gives you very specific. I'm just saying, when you take a look, you're going to see that it's an outline that God has in mind that children are supposed to get this information. And I would love for your answer, 866-348-7884. We would love to talk to you, believe me. And so, with that said, Nick, I know, who was that first band teacher that, man, showed you, look, it's time to belly up to that tuba or whatever?
Actually, it was a trumpet.
A trumpet?
It was a trumpet, and his name was Mr. Joyner. He was my band teacher from when I was in middle school, and he was a very fun teacher. I liked Mr. Joyner a lot, and he was a little wacky, kind of all over the place, but he made music class fun. He made learning music and learning notes made it fun for sure. Yeah.
Right. The joy of the Lord is our strength. Always. Right? It's got to have fun. It's the first rule of band. Have fun.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A lot of band teachers, they would say that exact same thing.
Yeah, because well, by the way, it's the first rule of English class, and it's the first rule of math. Because again,
well, I don't know about math.
it is. It really is. I've got a son-in-law who has his master's degree in statistical math. Like what? Who studies that crazy stuff? But he loves it. I mean, and he has a blast. Like, give him an equation, he's off and running.
Oh, wow.
And it just speaks to his heart, and it hit the gifting that God gave him. But somebody put that loved math, said, man, look how fun it is to figure this out. And, off he goes. However that works, somebody did it for me. We can, somebody's going to do it for these kids this year. We can be praying along those lines. And I would love to hear, right? When are you supposed to teach your children? 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH if you're digitally gifted, and you can call in that way. And I'm literally kind of shocked that there aren't, I thought I gave enough hints on that one, that this one would be coming in. But, again, to me, as we begin to teach our children, there's nobody that was more, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but, I don't know about you, but have you ever met a little kid that didn't have a bunch of questions?
No, kids are very curious.
Right. And why are they curious? Because they want to learn. In other words, why this? Why that? And unfortunately, they ask all these and then we shut them up. Worst possible, here you go. They're wanting to learn. Oh, and man, I'm so glad you got those questions. And what else would you like to know? And disciples have questions, and they just do. And so, one of the neat things you can do as you begin to learn the Bible is when you look at a passage, just begin to ask questions. See, what is it do I really not understand about this? And as you begin to figure out the questions, then you can go to God with them and say, God, what does this mean? And see, to me, it's the Holy Spirit that's ultimately going to teach you, which, by the way, he has a lot of joy involved. It's one of the fruits of the Spirit. This love, joy, peace, patience, all the things that you think about in a good teacher, right? You look at those fruits of the Spirit, and it's like the ultimate teacher. Especially when I don't know if you've put this together before, I didn't, is that when you look at the Beatitudes, right? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Well, meekness is a gift because it's one of the fruits of the Spirit. It's the same word in Hebrew and in Greek. The word meek and gentle are the same word. We talked about that last week on Truth Talk Live. And so, like, in order to get that gift, right, you kind of get it from God. It doesn't come without some faith. It doesn't come out without some learning. It doesn't come without some praying, right? Like, God, I need this gift. I need the gift of meekness. Well, that's gentleness. Well, think of a teacher that has love, that has joy, that has peace, right? That has patience or long suffering, as my teachers needed. Right? And kindness, gigantically huge in my world that I can remember a basketball coach that he was just so kind. I had no coordination, little bitty feet, fell down every 2 seconds, right? And he took his time, right, to show me what little basketball skills I had in order to put me in a position to play well. And because he was kind, right? He wasn't, he was a man's man, and he'd won I don't know how many basketball championships, but he was kind and he was patient and all that stuff with Robby. And then, obviously the gentleness and then the self-control. Like, can you imagine a good teacher that didn't have that particular gift?
Not a lot of students would like his class. Now, kindness goes a very long way in education, for sure. And
so, it's kind of neat to me. In fact, it's more than neat that my youngest daughter is a teacher. My older daughter's a nurse, so I have them both in service fields, and I love the way that they're able to do that. But, as we go into this school year, I can assure you that the school system has agendas. And they aren't have fun, okay? Just tell you. They don't come out with, okay, this year, school year, have fun. No. We're going to get this kind of test score. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we've got to, find a way to control these kids, and we got to find a way to teach this particular curriculum and all this stuff. So, there's a lot of stuff coming at what they came to do, right? The teachers got up in the morning that morning, and they were wanting to, do what God gifted them to do, yet they've got a principal, they've got parents.
Yeah. Principal, parents. Yeah.
Right. I don't know that if you ever talk to a teacher, and now that my daughter is one, I've had an opportunity to say that that's a real challenge sometimes. And so they need patience and self-control, and not just necessarily with the students. They got this whole thing coming at them, right? So come on, guys. There got to be somebody out there that knows when you're supposed to teach your children according to Deuteronomy 6. You can call us 866-348-7884. It's back to school time, and I know that you have some thoughts about what God could be doing, obviously, how we could be praying, things that would be a big advantage to this particular school year. We would love to hear from you, 866-348-7884. So, as you think about, right, your early, go back, Nick, way back. Like, where did you go to school back then?
I went to a couple different places. I started at elementary. I went to Jefferson. If you're in the Winston area, I went to Jefferson Elementary. Went to Forsyth Academy.
All right, well, let's go back to Jefferson.
Okay, Jefferson.
That's probably Thomas.
Yes.
Jefferson.
Yes.
So, like first, second grade, do you have any memory of anything that happened?
Nap time.
All right.
Yeah, nap time was great.
Really?
Nap time was great in elementary school. I definitely missed that part. But no,
you must have been a great kid that wanted to take a nap. I know I was not that kid.
I mean, at that time, I didn't want to take a nap, but now that I'm older, I see the benefit of taking a nap. For sure, the benefit.
You know what I remember? I remember two things. We lived in Los Angeles, and I used to love to watch the snails go down the sidewalk. I mean, that was just an amazing thing. These great big snails. They didn't go fast. And the other thing was the taste of paste.
Taste of paste.
The taste of paste. 866-348-7884. We need your call. 866-348-7884.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today we're back to school in so many different ways. And how fun. Be on the lookout for those yellow buses, for those little guys coming in and out, and we certainly need to be in prayer for teachers, for students, for faculty, all sorts of stuff that God has given us opportunity every year, right, to enter into this. This could be a turnaround year for somebody. What's your story where that happened for you? We would love to hear it. 866-348-7884. And since Nick, apparently I stumped the panel with my last question, I'm going to ask an infinitely easier question, but I still think there's some amazing answers. And so you can call us for a prize from the Truth Prize Vault, 866-348-7884. Who was the best, in your view? This is definitely subjective. Who was the best teacher? Who was the best teacher? 866-348-7884. We would love to hear that. But if you have the other one, like the other question that I asked, and I see somebody's calling in now, so they may know, what times were you supposed to teach your children according to Deuteronomy 6? We would very much like to get into that. But in the meantime, anything that along the lines of, how God impacted you through school. 866-348-7884. As we talked about, so much of it has to do with a heart. That the word lamed means to learn in Hebrew, and it is also a letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And Interestingly, right, if you look, there are 8 verses in the 119th Psalm that all go into that letter Lamed, and you'll see how much connection there is between the idea of heart, which is also begin with Lamed, and learning, as well as loving, because when you love something you want to learn about, it's inherent. And just like little kids have all these questions, you know, they were hoping to have answers. And so we got Mike. He's got an answer about teaching kids. When do you do that, Mike?
Well, am I right in Deuteronomy? I didn't cheat. I could have looked. In Deuteronomy, it says when they walk in your house and when they walk out, and then when they go to sleep, you teach your kids as much as possible. Basically, is that what it's basically Deuteronomy?
It looks like 24/7 to me. So what it says.
I didn't know the.
I'll read it for you. It says, "Thou shalt teach them diligently when they walk by the way, when they lie down, when they rise up." Right? Yeah. Just exactly like you said. When they sit in our house, and in other words, when they get up, when they get down, all those kind of things, you're supposed to put it on your heart. In other words, and kids do it inherently. Like if you're around them, right, Mike? They're asking you questions. Yep. And if you don't turn it off and you just keep turning it on, right, see something that they show some interest in and push in, and they'll have more questions. And the more that they learn, the more they develop that love of learning. And, oh, man, if you can get them to push into the Bible, that's what God's talking about right there.
Yeah, I got young grandkids, and so they haven't been learning too much other than, you know, can you say no? You know, so
yeah, well, I'm gonna bring Dave into this because Dave's calling from Virginia. Okay. So to see what he may have for us, you stay with us, Mike. So Dave, what's your view on teaching that you were going to share with us?
Well, as a homeschooled child, I was taught basically from birth, because my parents were missionaries and then they became pastors. And so for as long as I can remember, I was just taught in the Word. So
they did it when you got up and when you went down and when you walked in the way. And
Exactly. And I feel like as soon as they're born, you know, just that's how you're living your life. I assume, you know, doing your Bible devotions, your family devotions, reading your Bible, and being the good example for your children. And even as they're, you know, growing up and from 0 all the way until they leave the house, you're constantly teaching them the Word.
And so what's your favorite thing to study now, Dave?
Genesis.
Really?
That's my favorite book.
It's the index, right? Everything starts there.
Well, it's the more important that it shows how powerful God is.
Oh, yeah,
in a way, like Matthew in the Gospels, he does miracles, but what greater miracle is the beginning of the whole entire universe? Like,
yeah, like
without our existence, all those miracles are meaningless, pretty much.
You're exactly right.
It shows that God is amazingly powerful.
Yes, he is,
and to be feared.
Oh, I love that. And how about you, Mike? What's your favorite book in the Bible?
Well,
or what's your favorite thing to study? It may not be your favorite book in the Bible. What if so? You know, like man, if you only could get one book, what would it be?
Well, I've been studying right now the armor of God. You know, listening. You know,
Ephesians 6, right?
Right. And I'm sorry, I'm bad. I know where it's at in my Bible, but I don't know. I can't remember right off the top of my head right away.
No, it's okay. No. Yeah, I love that.
I'm trying to do better. Yes, and you inspired me to do that. Yeah, I mean, because how much you've talked about reading and more you read, the better you learn, and you have really inspired me to do that. I really mean that. I've been really diving into it because of you, sir. So thank you.
So
I appreciate it.
I'll tell you a funny story, guys, that part of the reason I suppose I'm behind the microphone right now is, you know, Stu Epperson, who owns the Truth Network, at one point in time when I first met him, was my rep on a radio station called WSJS, which now own. And he used to come by and try to sell me advertising, and I got crushed by a Jeep right after I had cancer, and I was in the hospital. I had all this time on my hands. So I wrote a screenplay called The Full Armor of God. I really did. I wrote it for a movie, right? Well, at the time, I was a car dealer, and I was just had this time. So I to tell you how much I love Ephesians 6, I wrote a whole screenplay on this whole thing about this kid that was blind, and he ended up, getting this armor, and interestingly, how God used it throughout, the movie. Anyway, the funny part of the story, Dave, are you enjoying this?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay.
I am too.
The funny part of the story is I spent 3 years writing this screenplay. And then if you're going to write a screenplay, you got to find an agent, right? And an agent will help you get that in front of, producers and all that kind of stuff. And so I wrote this thing, and I started to send out scripts to agents everywhere. And I finally landed this one that was really supposed to be like one of the really big Hollywood agents. And he asked me to send out the script. And so I send out the script, and about a month later, he calls. And, of course, I didn't know it was him calling. And I never call myself Robert Bruce Dillmore, but that's my name. And when I answered, he goes, "Is this the Robert Bruce Dillmore who wrote The Full Armor?" I never had anybody referred to me as that, but so I was like, "Yeah, that's me." I was so excited, like, "Oh man!" And he says, "This is the most disturbing piece of literature I have ever read."
Oh my goodness!
Nobody ever needs to make this into a movie. Is it okay if I burn it? And I'll never forget that call as long as I ever live, guys, because, it was like you spent all this time on it. You knew God called you to do it. And man, but Stu loved that screenplay. And Stu was always like, we got to make this movie. And it's interesting that someday he would end up with, a whole network, and someday that I would come to work for him as a Christian car guy and now doing Truth Talk Live with you guys. But somewhere in the, sitting in one of my closets is the screenplay. So whenever I think of Ephesians 6, Mike, I can't help but think of my screenplay.
Well, I answered the question. Can you send me the screenplay so I can read it?
Same here.
Seriously, I'd love to read it. That would be awesome.
Well, I will see if I can find that and send it both. Make sure Nick gets your address, and I'll see what I can do to make that happen for you guys. Make another copy for you, Dave, and because I really thought it was really, really neat. And I'll give you a little teaser that I was writing it. It was actually the Holy Spirit was telling me what was going on in the story, because I didn't know the end of the story. I didn't know why he needed to be blind, and I had more questions about the story than I had answers. And my life took a turn where I had nothing to do because of my illness and all sorts of stuff, but write this play. And so I ended up going out in the woods for about a week, just so that God would tell me what the ending of the story was. And when he told me, it blew my mind. It was like, oh, now it makes sense. Now it all makes, it's like, oh man, it was like, when I wrote it, I said, these people are going to think I'm a genius that I came up with this. But I didn't, it was just like, he finally told me why all these things happened, because all things work together for good, right? And so I've probably teased the story for you real good. Now I need to make sure I can find it and send it to you guys.
That's okay.
But anyway, so Mike, did you have a favorite teacher in school?
No, I had a best friend that taught me a lot. His name was Mike Johnson. Hope you're listening, Mike. You were an awesome person in my high school years, and you tutored me all the way through high school, and you motivated me to learn. So he was an awesome person.
That is awesome.
One of my best friends. Yeah. So,
and Dave, your parents, right? And so did you end up going on to college after you were homeschooled?
I did. I went to Liberty University.
Did you really?
Semesters. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So do you live in Lynchburg now?
That's right. That's correct.
Oh, cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, that is nice. And so what was the transition like, coming from being homeschooled and obviously from wonderful Christian parents, missionaries, and all you described, to then going to Liberty?
It was a kind of a shocker. Large amounts of people versus just, me and my family.
Yeah.
It was crazy, but it was good.
I love that. Good. I hate that music says I got to go, because I love you guys. And I'm so grateful for everybody that tuned in today. And remember, be praying for those guys out there learning this year and the teachers too. God bless.
Another program powered by the Truth Network.